Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have a brand new set of great stories for you to enjoy. Subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go. Make me walk a mile in the rain? Don't mind me while I get you fired from your job. Last week, my fiancé came to my bar after work and had a few drinks, so he left his car in the parking lot and I drove him home in mine. We have amazing public transportation where we live, so we decided to take the express bus back into town where the operations center and end of the line of the bus route stops right next to the parking lot of my bar. I took this bus 5 days a week this last winter when roads were bad and made friends with all the drivers. A few of them were nice enough to drop me off right in front of the door to the bar so I didn't have to walk across a snowy parking lot. They said it was okay because the buses have to refuel after their route and they have to pull a U-turn at the operations center anyway, so this way they could just keep driving past the bar and continue on their way to the refueling station. So we're on this bus back into town, and there's a new driver I haven't seen before, but it's been a few months since I've taken the bus, so I didn't think anything of it. I just got on the bus and said hello before dropping my money in the slot. We make it down into town and we make a routine stop at a transit center when the driver tells us that this is the end of her route and she's now out of service. There's still about 2 miles left between where we are and the operations center where the actual end of the line should be and where we need to go. She tells us we can take a different bus to a crosswalk about a mile from the OC and then walk. I got this really big whiff of bullcrap, but I didn't say anything at that point. I just got off the bus and waited 15 minutes in the rain for another bus. A few people who were also on my bus and waiting for the next told me this was the 3rd time she did this to them in the last week. Kicked them off her bus, then made them pay another bus fare to go up the street for 1 mile and then walk. I remembered what the other bus drivers told me about having to pull a U-turn and then go refuel, but if there's no one on the bus, they can just go directly to the refueling center and avoid the last 10 minutes of their route. This lazy bee was just kicking people off her bus and making them pay more money and walk so she could get off work 10 minutes early. Here's the revenge. So as I'm getting on the second bus, I see the phone number for the operations center printed on the side of the bus route picture, so I call it. I tell them I was one of 5 people this bus driver let off the bus at the transit center and were told she was out of service. I ask in an innocent voice, is it because they have to go refuel or something? I hear the dispatch guy let out a very annoyed, "Ugh," then saying something to someone in the background. She knows she's not supposed to do this. This is the last time. Apparently she'd been told not to do it quite a few times, and this was the final straw. We talk for a few minutes, and I tell him I wasn't trying to get anybody in trouble, but it was kind of crappy, and if I hadn't had the day off and I were trying to get to work, the conversation would have been completely different. He assured me this was going to be her last route, which I kind of felt bad about until I stepped off the bus and had to start walking that mile in the rain. And our next story. Wear a tie? Sure thing. I worked for a computer warehouse-type superstore. Right after I was hired, I learned it was not a great job. Almost everyone hated it, but you had some potential to make good commissions and sales, so people kept their heads down and never questioned anything. Most competent people never stayed longer than a year, and employee turnover was huge. Truly a terrible place to work. I'd recently sold my computer store and was taking a year off. After a few months, I got bored and got this job as a part-time to keep me out of the house and supplement the cash out from the computer store sale. Being in this position gave me some freedom some other people who worked there didn't have. If someone was complaining about something, I was more than happy to bring it up with management since I didn't care if I got fired. I'm pretty sure the store manager hated me. Dress code for guys was white button-down shirt, tie, and some form of Dockers-type pants. Since this job didn't pay much for non-sales staff, many employees had cheap, ill-fitting button-down shirts and one cheap tie. Honestly, the staff would have looked better in a store-branded t-shirt or polo shirt, but since this store was crazy cheap, that would have cost them overhead. You can't have that. I've got a collection of some really nice ties I'd collected over the past 15 years or so, mostly vintage silks from the 50s and 60s. I actually hardly ever wore ties, but collecting them was a little hobby of mine. If I saw a particularly nice one, I'd nab it. One morning, I was getting ready and managed to forget my tie. It was about a 40-minute drive to work, and I noticed my missing tie when I got out of the car at work. No big deal, I thought. Nope, wrong. About an hour into my shift, I get pulled aside by my direct manager. I explain I somehow forgot about my tie and didn't really think it was a big deal. I also explained I was 40 minutes away from home and didn't have time to go back before my shift started. My direct manager was pretty cool, but he has his stupid rules to follow, so I got passed over to HR and the store manager. The store manager acted like I just poured epoxy into all the toilets. He was crazy PO'd at me. He lectured me for 25 minutes about the importance of the dress code, how those that don't follow it aren't team players, and how if it happens again, I'll be looking for a new job. He actually made me read the section in the employee handbook on the dress code, so I knew it and could follow it to the letter. All this over a tie. I got written up and sent home to get my tie. Since I was 40 minutes from home, I just went to a local store, bought a cheap tie, and hung out at a cafe for an hour. That weekend, I went thrift store shopping. I spent all day hitting every thrift store I could find. I found the ugliest, whitest, crappiest ties I could find. Massive 1970s brown vomit-colored ties, ugly green avocado-colored ties as large as a lobster bib, patterns that made my eyes bleed, polyester atrocities time forgot. I also bought some Christmas ties with Santa and holiday wreaths. It was summertime. To top it off, I bought some terrible oversized white button-down shirts. A few were just off-white enough they looked almost dirty. My next day at work, I went from being the guy who looked fairly sharp to someone who looked like they escaped a mental ward in the 1970s. My direct manager saw me and started to laugh. He got it. He just patted me on the back and I was back to work. The store manager saw me later in the day and was not pleased. But since there's no wording in the employee guidelines on ties being within reason or shirts fitting, he couldn't say anything. I'm sure he thought it was just a fluke for the day. Sadly, he was wrong. My ties just got worse and worse as I uncovered them in thrift stores and garage sales over the next few weeks. I tie them short or uneven so the back hung lower from the front. I'd triple wrap a 4-in-hand knot to make it look wrong and sideways. I found so many I started giving other people these terrible ties, and within a few weeks, a quarter of the people in my department looked completely ridiculous. I ended up quitting about a month or so later. My last day at work, I distributed all my atrocities to everyone I knew at work to let my tie legacy live on. And our next story. 1 minute is late? Okay. So I had some attendance issues at an old job. Not really. The policy was that within 5 minutes of the shift is considered on time. Well, I had a manager who wanted to abruptly change corporate policy and define clearly that late equals late. So, background. It's retail and I'm in my senior year of college. I'm not making a career out of this job, and I'm 5 years older than all of my coworkers. My immediate manager felt threatened by me as I'd previously declined leadership positions to finish school. He always had something he needed to fix about me, even though I had 7 straight months of rock star performance, exceeding metrics by plus 10% above goal, and I frequently aided in training new employees. Once again, this was a college filler, not a career move for me. I'm not a bad employee. However, I was a busy employee. My last semester working there, I had 5 classes and would usually be within a minute or two of my shift. So manager one day specifies I'm late. It's 3:01 and my shift starts at 3, to which I said, marginally. He, in front of other coworkers, decides he's going to put his foot down. No, combustible geoduck, 1 minute late is late. So I stop my task and calmly ask him, then what does it mean when I'm staying 45 minutes after my shift to help when we're short-staffed? And he said, we don't even want to have this conversation right now, and left. To be fair, he's not wrong. He handled the situation wrong. If he wanted me to change something, we could have talked in private. He wanted to swing D's in front of the new hires. So I complied. I made it a point to clock in and out exactly when my shift starts and ends. It's glorious. A couple weeks later, he tells me I need to do something 2 minutes before my shift ends, so I start the task, and 2 minutes later, sorry manager, my shift's over, clocked out and left. My mindset is, go ahead, try to fire the best-looking employee on paper for working exactly his shift and not a second longer. He didn't want to swing D's after that. And our last story. Act like a jackwagon in my store? I'll let you look like one to your friends, too. Here I am, working a Saturday evening shift at a card and gift store. Think Hallmark, but not that brand name. As anyone that's worked at one can tell you, a good 50% of the customers are clearly en route to the event they're buying the card for, and a good 50% of those people think that their lack of planning is your problem. So I'm in the middle of assisting a customer when I see a very expensive car pull up and park in the fire lane outside the store. A man in a very expensive suit gets out of the car and walks in. Upon entering, he heads to the back without breaking stride and shouts, "Wedding cards!" I don't think he even saw me. He just figured that since he's the most important person in the world, there must be someone at his beck and call. I'm mid-sentence with my customer, so I finish it before addressing him. Before I can, he actually used a little effort to find the clearly labeled cards himself, which he politely informed me of with a, "Got it." About 4 seconds later, he arrives at the counter, having obviously picked out the first card he saw. Maintaining volume, he respectfully requests to borrow a pen to fill out the card while he's in the process of reaching over the counter to grab one from my pen cup. While he's filling it out, I ring up the next customer around the space he's taking up on my counter. I look down and notice that he's addressed the card to at least one male name. I also notice that he's picked out the one wedding card that we sell that is unambiguously for a lesbian couple. I saw no reason to trouble him with that information. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.